Who do you think invented math, the movement of the sun and moon, medical techniques, and much more? Or what about the ruins in Zimbabwe being attributed to Europeans, Arabians, and Babylonians? Well, if you don't know the pure, untempered Black history, you might say the Europeans or Americans were the ones. However, the reality is astonishingly otherwise. If we start to count the African achievements attributed to other people, the list will be never-ending. However, we have researched and compiled a list of African achievements to give you an idea about what Africans achieved when the Greeks, Romans, and other civilizations were living in darkness. But what are they? Welcome to a new episode of Black Culture Diary, a channel where we talk about less-known and hidden Black history, culture, arts, and lost civilization. We scrutinize history here to bring the Black culture back on the surface again. In this episode, we will reveal the African achievements the Europeans and other people took credit for. Let's get started. Perhaps this is a tragedy that only that part of African history is intact when Europeans visited Africa and colonized it. Apart from that, no record of Black history exists which has not been fabricated, tempered, and falsified. That became the very reason why most of the African achievements have fallen into Europeans' laps. Since no record existed that could show a linkage between Africa and the inventions, Europeans marked their names on them. However, there is good news. With time, scholars and anthropologists have taken a deep interest in Africa due to the presence of the Pyramid of Giza in Egypt. They wonder if such a magnificent structure could exist in an African country like Egypt. What if there were more civilizations? In turn, this begs the question that perhaps the world doesn't know the architecture and inventions Africa could be holding, buried under layers of rocks and dust. One such story is of the ruins of Great Zimbabwe attributed to Europeans, Babylonians, Arabians, Phoenicians, and more, except Africans who actually built them. Great Zimbabwe, located in modern-day Zimbabwe, is regarded as a remarkable achievement of African civilization. These impressive ruins were built in the early 12th century and are the largest stone ruins south of the Sahara. Initially, outsiders were credited with building the structures. However, evidence now suggests that the Shona people, who resided in the region at the time, were responsible for constructing the marvelously built stone fortifications. Great Zimbabwe was the center of a flourishing gold trade that spanned across the Indian Ocean. Early European visitors had difficulty accepting that Africans were responsible for constructing such impressive structures, and instead attributed their construction to other groups. Portuguese traders in the late 1500s thought the city might be the legendary Queen of Sheba's city, or the biblical city of Ophir. However, later visitors to the site believed that Phoenicians, Arabs, Egyptians, or even the fabled Christian king Prester John had built Great Zimbabwe. You can see how people were trying to pull African achievements from Africans. Despite the evidence, many colonialists maintained their Eurasian hypothesis, attributing the site's ruins to anyone but the historical Shona builders. However, archaeologists like David Randall McIver, Gertrude Catton Thompson, and Roger Summers were among the first to provide evidence that Great Zimbabwe was, in fact, built by the Shona people. Still, the belief in the site's exotic origins persisted among many colonizers. Before we continue further, tell us, are you enjoying the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and natural superiority. Let's continue now. Something frequently attributed to other people is the phenomenal Ife heads, unearthed in Nigeria in the 1940s. The Yoruba people of Africa created remarkable art, including the beautiful Ife heads and brass and terracotta sculptures found in the city of Ilefe. In the 10th and 11th centuries, Ilefe was a prosperous city, home to the Oni, the ruler of the Yoruba people, and their spiritual leader. While Benin and Oyo were more dominant cities, Ilefe was revered for its art and cultural significance, particularly its sculptures. The lost wax process was used to create bronze castings in Ilefe, similar to that used by the ancient Greeks. The beauty and skill demonstrated in the Ife sculptures are undeniable and a testament to African achievement. The artists at Ilefe were able to create casts of nearly pure copper, something that the Greeks, Romans, Chinese bronze casters, or even the Italian Renaissance artists couldn't do. Foreigners were likely astounded by the discovery of the Ife sculptures, but many were critical or refused to acknowledge their African origin. Leo Frobenius, a German archaeologist, was one of the first to study Ife in depth. He discovered a grove of Osanyan to the northwest of the palace, where he found two fragments of a terracotta face in a naturalistic style. Frobenius believed they resembled ancient Greek art and used them to support his theory that a race far superior to the African race once inhabited the area. Frobenius's most famous discovery was the brass head known as olokun, which only reinforced his Eurocentric viewpoint. He believed he had discovered evidence of a Greek colony on the Atlantic coast of Africa. His publications codified these ideas in popular culture, which astonished the art world. However, all this was mere fantasies. Unlike any known African art, the Ife heads had an immediate appeal to those familiar with European art. They were judged as works of art in their own right, comparable to anything created in ancient Egypt, classical Greece and Rome, or Renaissance Europe. It was assumed that they were made outside of Africa and imported or created in Africa by an artist working in a non-African tradition. The evidence supporting an African origin was largely disregarded. Attributing African achievements to non-African sources reflects the dark continent stereotype, which discredits Africa's rich cultural and artistic heritage. And the story doesn't end with architecture. Did you know that many modern concepts we learn in high school mathematics were first developed in Africa? The Egyptians, over 35,000 years ago, scripted textbooks on math that included division and multiplication of fractions, as well as geometric formulas to calculate the area and volume of shapes. They even used math to predict the size of the Nile floods. Not only that, but they considered a circle to have 360 degrees and estimated the value of pi to be 3.16, which is extraordinarily closer to the actual value. But the Egyptians weren't the only ones. People in present-day Zaire developed their own numeration system 8,000 years ago. In contrast, the Yoruba people in Nigeria used a system based on units of 20, requiring an impressive amount of subtraction to identify different numbers. Scholars have praised this system for its abstract reasoning. And what about astronomy? Ancient African cultures made incredible discoveries that still form the basis of our knowledge today. For example, the Egyptians meticulously charted the movement of the sun, the constellations, and the moon's cycles. They even developed a year-long calendar system with 365 1/4 days. This is just genius. And believe it or not, they made clocks using moving water and sundial-like devices. Even this includes medical techniques and treatments as well. Before Europe became a dominant force, medicine in Egypt, Nigeria, and South Africa was more advanced. They used plants like salicylic acid for pain relief, which was similar to aspirin, and kaolin for diarrhea. Some extracts were even found to kill gram-positive bacteria in the 20th century. That's not all, because Africans also discovered powerful treatments for cancer, malaria, and even abortion. Yes, Africans were living on another level when Europeans were thinking of living. In fact, ancient Africans were pioneers in medical procedures that are still used today, such as vaccination, autopsy, limb traction and broken bone setting, brain surgery, skin grafting, dental fillings, cesarean sections, anesthesia, and tissue cauterization. And while Europeans were just starting to understand the concept of antiseptic conditions, African cultures had already performed surgeries under these conditions. But as we know, all these inventions are falsely attributed to Europeans. Don't you think it's unfair not to give credit to Africans for the achievements we are using today? Doesn't it feel wrong to credit Europeans and Americans for the things they didn't invent or discover? Let us know in the comments section right below. What if people have stolen more things from Africa and called them theirs? How can we know what the truth is? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody is talking about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and the evidence proving Black superiority. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.